Don't burn books. Read them. Our first episode, Book Bonfire. My name is Misty.
My name is Michael.
Books that I read in 2025. This is a partial list. I recently finished reading Flea, Acid for the Children. I enjoyed reading about Flea's passion for music. I didn't love him talking about drugs so much. It just got boring after a while. Okay, I get it. Drugs are amazing, but it was interesting reading about how he met Anthony Kiedis. When I was 16 in Midland, Texas, I didn't have any older siblings. I was the eldest. I had a younger brother and a younger sister. My parents weren't cool. A couple of boomers, my mom and stepdad. So I had to find music on my own. I loved Sassy Magazine, and I was reading this article, this interview with Ione Skye, probably mispronouncing her name. She was dating Anthony Kiedis. I had never heard of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, so I went to the music store at the mall, and I was looking at all the Red Hot Chili Pepper offerings. And Mother's Milk looked really hot, but the song titles for Freaky Styley really intrigued me. So I bought the cassette of Freaky Styley, went to the Duck Park, sat there in my Ford Granada, and just listened to Freaky Styley and loved it. So anyway, that's interesting, reading about how he loved music as a kid and meeting Anthony Kiedis. I had just read this excerpt. We had to do another take. So, talking about the Beatles. But yeah, I like it. And I read most of Sloppy by Rax King. Sloppy, or Doing It All Wrong, a collection of essays. And this is just a random excerpt from The Temple of Feminine Perfection. I waited for Adina to escort me to the private audition room, which I was about to learn didn't exist. "You're next," she said as Liv's song began winding down. "You ready to get up there?" No privacy then. That was okay. The whiskey was doing its stuff. I was as ready as I'd ever be. Liv smacked my ass hard for luck as I took the stage and the DJ put on the song Rack City. Rax City, I thought. My heart drummed in my chest as I danced for those two men who never looked any less bored. Liv was mouthing something at me from the bar. Sledding? Slumber? She scribbled on a cocktail menu and held up her makeshift sign. Slower. I can relate. I've danced topless in a few clubs. Okay, currently reading the Book of Sheen, Charlie Sheen. Wasn't crazy about the way it started. I wasn't crazy about Charlie's voice, his use of the vernacular. But then I got to the chapter on his experience shooting Platoon in the Philippines. It's like I was telling Michael earlier over breakfast. I said, this book is worth it for the Platoon chapter alone, because I've always liked that movie, and for years Oliver Stone was my favorite director. So let's see, where is it? Here we go. Which chapter is it? It is chapter 17. Okay. There's a really good section here. I read it on the take that I had to scrap. Damn it, I lost it. Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe and this guy that I'd never heard of before, Francesco Quinn. Okay. Let's see. Well, I'm not going to find it. Anyway, Forrest Whitaker lost close to 35 pounds during the training. Oliver was worried because Forrest was playing a character named Big Harold. Would have been odd to have to call him sorta large Harold. We were depersonalized by only being referred to as our character names. In the camp, on the set, at the hotel, it left no room for anyone's ego or diva bullshit. When you suffer as a unit, you bond like one as well. By the end of the first week, I felt like I'd known all of those men for much longer than the calendar insisted. Camp Die, that's D-Y-E. Camp Die was the nickname Depp and I gave that hellscape. We never shared that with the captain. Didn't feel like he needed any more motivation to kill us. This was already making Apocalypse feel like a 5-star vacation. And I'm going to be reading Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s, Tom O'Neill. And I'm reading Michelle McDaniel, Collected Poems, 2005 to 2025. Midsection. I quit smoking once, or 30 times. It's all the same, really. Well, this one time, it was the bloody filters I quit. The smell of them bastards when burning made me gag. This girl I was living with wrote her own. She had a bright yellow head, so I tried. It always came out so fat in the middle, kind of like I was becoming. And becoming, I was. It was the baby, you see, roly-poly. It felt like butterflies flitting around, soft blue clouds and pink flowers set for the gagging. We would have just kept on with fields and rainbows, yeah, occasional puke, but for the brown-head spike man that kept coming with his moon pies and promises, should have left the chain on. And I'm reading The Lunar Nodes, Your Key to Excellent Chart Interpretation, written and illustrated by Judith Hill. This was published in 2009. It looks a lot older than that. Node is Latin for a knot. These are the knots or the places where the moon's orbit is tied to the Earth's orbit or the ecliptic plane. When the moon moves from southern latitudes to northern latitudes, crossing the ecliptic plane, this ecliptic crossing is the North Node. My North Node is in Capricorn in the 5th house. Okay, Michael, you're on.
Last year, I read books by Larry McMurtry. I've read a lot of books about comic book history because I'm a comic book historian. So some of you will find that boring. Others may find it very exciting. But I read, one of the ones that stood out about comic book history was Last Girl Standing by Trina Robbins, who was an amazing comic book artist, writer, publisher. She also...
Did she do Wonder Woman?
She did. She was the first woman to draw Wonder Woman. She drew her in the 1980s. But she was also, there in the 1960s. She lived in both Manhattan and in San Francisco and in Los Angeles. She lived all over in the, amazing 1960s.
So she had the perspective of both coasts.
She really did. She was also a fashion designer, and she was great at making these wonderful hippie clothes.
Oh yeah, psychedelic.
She designed clothes for all the famous musicians of the day.
Did she design for the Mamas and the Papas?
Yes,
Mama Cass and Michelle
did.
Phillips?
She loved to go to thrift stores, find vintage clothes.
That's
and
her
rework
art?
them.
That's really good. What?
Yes.
What is that? What is that from?
Let's see what that's from.
That is really good. I like how she draws her characters.
One Flower Child's Search for Love.
Okay.
So this.
She reminds me a little bit of Dory Sita.
Yes, she knew Dory. She loved Dory. But anyway, this is great. Like, she knew people from the literary world.
She knew Crumb. I'm sure she knew Crumb.
She did. She knew Bob Dylan, Jim Morrison. She knew all those guys. She was right there in the thick of it.
That looks like Janis Joplin on the back.
That's her.
That is Janis Joplin. So she designed.
No, that's
Trina
That's
Robbins. Was she wore her hair just like Janice?
Yes,
you
and
know?
she was redheaded, like
Oh, Janice had brown hair, I think. But anyway,
yeah,
she looks very similar.
yes. So I read that. Books by Larry McMurtry about his love and life with books. This is an amazing
But really, I've not read it in a while. It's been months. But he doesn't really talk about books that had an impact on him, right? He just talks about collecting books.
collecting and selling. Yeah.
Collecting and selling
That was
as a
his-
business.
Yes, as a business. The Man of Two Worlds, I read. The Life of Julius Schwartz. This is more like a transcribed interview or interviews with the famous DC Comics editor.
He looks affable. That's a word that you don't hear often. You know, affable. I think it's a synonym for congenial.
Yeah, he could be a ruthless editor, but he was very innovative, and he had forethought and saw. He helped the comic book industry survive when it was failing. But he also used to edit all the pulp magazines in the 30s and 40s.
EC?
No,
Comics?
pulp.
Oh.
Like pulp.
See, I think of pulp when
Like Pulp Fiction pulp.
I think of EC Comics.
So that was his first love, was science fiction and the pulps. And then he
Oh.
got a job out of desperation when the pulps were failing. He got a job at DC Comics and
Okay.
turned that into a career. So that is fascinating, Man of Two Worlds.
And that's what I gave you for Christmas. One of my Christmas gifts to you: the kitchen readings, untold stories of Hunter S. Thompson, Michael Cleverly, and Bob Broudis.
Yes, Bob Broudis was the sheriff of...
See, I love that cover
Aspen.
photo. He's got that mannequin head, and is he smoking a cigar? That's a cigar,
yes, he's
right?
lighting a cigar.
Yes.
This is amazing. Two of Hunter's closest friends.
And it has photographs, black and white photographs.
Write about all the adventures that you never heard about, but that you always
Looks
knew
like
happened.
that circa the Rum Diary.
Right. Well, no, that was probably circa Hey Rube.
Oh, the 80s. Okay.
Yeah, the 90s. There he is in his convertible Chevy. This is just great because it's got all the stuff from all the stories from his hometown and all the shenanigans he got up to. Then I also read Understanding Superhero Comics by Alex Grand, who I got to hang out with at San Diego Comic Con.
Weren't you
this
on a
year.
panel together at Comic Con?
Yes, I was on a panel with him. He's a great comic book historian, and his wonderful book, Understanding Superhero Comics.
That looks like Wolverine.
Yeah, so he writes about the whole history of comics and how to kind of put it into perspective. If you're wondering, lots of other stuff I read, Marvel Comics, The Untold Story, also the classic Alan Moore, Watchmen. I've read before, but I had to read it again for some research I was doing. This is, just read some of the accolades on it. If you're not familiar with the Watchmen,
A masterwork representing the apex of artistry, Entertainment Weekly, the greatest piece of popular fiction ever produced. Lost co-creator Damon Lindelof. Is this for real?
yes.
They're being serious.
This work, although it's a work of comic book fiction, Alan Moore is a master storyteller and writer, and him with the art of Dave Gibbons created this masterpiece.
Ooh, I like those pictures.
Yeah, this came out in the 80s.
It has pictures, so I like it.
But it really is an amazing story. Alan Moore
Okay,
can craft
the
that.
first YouTube video has to be less than 15 minutes. I just want to say this. All the moves of my life, all the chaos of my life, I still have my Rainbow Study Bible, King James Version, that my mom gave me when I started my senior year finished my senior year at Fredericksburg Christian, Fredericksburg, Texas. Anyway, I did a poem recently for YouTube, a spoken word piece. I called it King James Word Salad, just going through the Old and the New Testament and taking all these words and turning it into word salad. That's basically what the Bible is. It's word salad, but I enjoy it. Okay, that's it.
Thank you.
End transmission.
Transmission.